Thomas here, and welcome to BRStv Reacts, where I get to react to your aquariums. Today is the YouTube edition, where I'm going to be looking at aquariums that you've uploaded to YouTube with the hashtag BRStv Reacts. So if you want yours seen, go ahead and do that. Let's get started. We're starting out today with Eric Wozny. Hopefully I'm pronouncing your name right. And let's have a peek at what you have for us today. Okay, first off, this tank is pretty epic. It's a 600-gallon tank, so it's humongous. And you've done an amazing job of actually keeping the rock work off of all of the walls. It's not touching the sides, lots of room to pass by. It's not touching the back either, which you'll see a bit later in the video. Looks excellent. Nice, big, beautiful fish. Lots of arches for these fish and stuff to go through and for flow to pass through. The rock's actually set up really, really well to have flow in the tank, be able to move around the corals and the rock work and not cause detritus traps and stuff like that. And overall just looks really, really nice. I love the choice of corals. Not everybody wants like a full-blown SPS tank. This has got a lot of nice softies, some really, really nice anemones, the rock flowers and the small maxi carpets. Really, really pretty. The euphyllias look awesome. Everything looks really healthy in the tank. I would say that I'm surprised that the euphyllias don't have more motion. I don't really see any power heads or anything in the tank. It's, you know, it's a little hard to see. The blues are turned way, way up, which is nice, but makes it a little difficult sometimes. I do like the fact that it looks like you've got some adductors or penductors, depending on what you want to call them, on the outflows of the return to really help get that return pump pushing flow all around the tank. But I think those euphyllias would probably benefit from a little bit more flow. Ultimately, though, everything's looking really, really nice. I love the amount of tangs that are in this tank. It's, again, coming back to that utilitarian fish or fish with a purpose for the reef. Not only do tangs look really, really nice, but when you've got 600 gallons, yeah, throw in a blonde naso, throw in a big sailfin tang, and don't even worry about it. They're gonna eat algae, keep things clean, and just generally look awesome. And none of those tangs look like they have a problem with each other, even though they're all different species. I mean, the purple tangs and the zebra or the Desjardins tang are pretty close. Sailfin tang, nice. It's really nice to see a maintenance room that's specific to the tank. And when you have a tank that's like 600 gallons, no surprise that you're going to have a room behind it full of equipment. I'm also really, really glad to see that you have a quarantine system back there. It makes a lot of sense, especially when you have a huge system like that and you're trying to protect your other fish, protect your pets, protect your investment. Quarantine's the way to go. The filtration is pretty simplistic. Like looking at it, you got a good skimmer, you've got a heating element in there, and you've got your refugium. And it doesn't have to be super pretty. It's not some, you know, crazy custom teched out sump. It's just an aquarium, you know, outfitted to do the job. And I'm really, really fond of your nifty lighting solution to hang the various Hydra 32s you've got up there. It's a really good choice, especially because you mentioned that you really just want to focus on euphyllias and softies. That's where your heart is. So that's an incredible setup for a tank of that size to make sure you're getting the right light to your corals. I don't really have a ton of advice other than maybe kick the flow up and increase target feeding to your corals if you're trying to increase their growth. Ultimately, everything's looking really, really nice, and it's cool to see a tank of that kind of stature, that size, running on really simplistic filtration, because truthfully, in a lot of applications, that's all you're going to need. If you ever do find that you're not getting enough nutrient export from the tank, which with 600 gallons of water, like you could have way more fish than that and probably not run into nutrient issues. But if you do, you can always swap out the more basic light fixture over the refugium for something with a lot more punch, and that'll help boost that Chaeto to be able to pull out more of, or whatever algae you've got in there, to pull out more of the nutrients in the water. But ultimately awesome. I can see you've got a ways to go probably before you're going to feel satisfied with, you know, the amount of coral in that tank. And there's two ways to go about it: spend a lot of money and buy a lot of coral, or let everything grow out. But you're off to an amazing start. It's going to take years to get that tank to fill in, but it's already looking pretty awesome. So really good job. I'm very interested to see what's next. Whew, 600 gallons. Next up, we've got JustAnotherNanoTank. I like the username. Also like nanotanks. See what we got. Awesome. It looks like a Biocube with a couple of AI primes on it. That's a lot of light for a little tank. Oh, I can see why. Nice. SPS, got some Digi, it looks like, some Montipora. Yeah, Montipora digitata, some forest fire that's in there, maybe some sunset even. Holy. Really nice looking acro down there on the bottom. The acans are feeding tentacles right out. Just give me the food. Growth looks good. That red cap or orange cap is just starting to folate out everywhere. Hammer in the back looking all nice and bushy. Clownfish just losing his mind on the back of the glass. Just like, yeah, this is where I live. Really nice. Really, really nice. Everything's looking good. I can see you have the flow turned off so we can get some nice top-down shots. Man, those acans are screaming. They look good. Those Bam Bams, orange Bam Bams, I think that's what they're called. So I don't know how long this tank's been running. There was no audio or anything or message with the tank. So what I'm going to say is that you've obviously got it going on. So you know what you're doing. You've got a pretty good kind of layout in the tank already. You obviously have set this up for a lot of upward growth. The rock is really, really, really short in the tank. Doesn't take up a lot of space. That's a good thing when you're growing an SPS tank. SPS tanks, you know, you're typically trying to get a lot of branching upward growth. So if you stack the rock up too tall, you kind of cut yourself off at the knees. You run out of room real fast. But you've got this set up really well. I love the placement of the corals. You've got those nice larger branching SPS at the back. You've got some nice encrusting stuff just in front of it, as well as that big foliating cap that's right on the side there. And then right in the front, you've got a little acan garden started, a couple of, looks like scalemia that are really, really, really nice, and that zoa rock. As this tank grows in, if you can even imagine, you're going to have one side, it's going to be full of branches growing straight up to the surface, looking really, really nice. And the other side, you're going to have this big whirring cap. And that in itself, even if you just had those two types of corals, would look really, really nice. But I can see you've even got some more on a frag rack that either you're going to sell off or you haven't decided where they're going yet. It's nice. You've also got a crazy gyre pump in there, which is going to be a ton of flow for such a small tank. But it seems like your substrate more or less stays in place. It's probably already blown out from the corners. You're obviously doing something right when it comes to nutrient export, because I don't really see much in the way of algae in this tank. Maybe save for what could be some of that really, really short velvety looking stuff that grows super tight to the rock. Maybe some of that's on the back. It's hard to tell. The video's just a wee bit fuzzy. But beyond that, like, I don't really see any algae issues in this tank. There's coralline growing on everything. The corals are happy. I don't see any real algae issues to speak of. Really nice. Really, really nice. Corals look super happy. Solid. Really good work. Nano tanks are not the easiest tanks to keep. They are probably one of the hardest tanks to have. Nano tank, everything changes fast on them. Temperature changes fast. Parameters swing harder, faster. But you've obviously got something good going on. So kudos. I'm a big fan of nano tanks. I'm also a big fan of SPS. Therefore, I really like your tank. All right, next up, we've got Reef Therapy. Let's have a look at what Reef Therapy's doing. All right, so 40-gallon breeder. Definitely looks like you're headed the SPS dominant route. Rock work is excellent. Doesn't come too high up in the tank. 2 separate islands, not touching the glass. Get lots of water flow around it. Massive amount of flow in this tank. It looks like a pair of MP40s providing flow. Bare bottom makes sense with those MP40s on there, for sure. Everything's looking solid. Corals look super happy. The lighting system on this tank is crazy too. So high output T5s, hybrid fixture with some AI primes. Really nice option for a 40 breeder. Get those branching SPS right up on the top of the rock work there. Some plating ones a little bit further down. A really nice collection of corals so far. This tank has a lot of growing in to do, for sure, but you already have like a lot of nice different color. So we've got some blues, reds, purples, greens. All kinds of different shapes and textures in there. The Space Invader Pectinia is really, really nice. Scalemia looks good. I see a whole whack load of Apex on there. Simple sump. Okay, so this is the second tank we've looked at that has nothing crazy going on for the sump. It's a glass tank converted to a sump and have decent equipment in it. It's basically, it looks like a refugium and a skimmer, and that's basically it. And then full bore with the Apex. Trident system, 2 dose systems. You were going hardcore on the automation. Want everything to be as stable as possible, as hands-off as possible, I'm guessing is your goal. But that really, really works for stability if you put the effort into setting everything up and getting it tuned in properly. I love also that you braided, it looks like you've basically braided the cables from the MP40 and the feeder along the trim of the tank. So when you're on one side of the tank, which also I love that it's a peninsula. On one side of the tank, you don't see it at all. And on the other side, it's hidden on the actual brace, so on a black background, which is smart. It's really, really smart. Maybe a little bit tedious when it comes time to take it down for maintenance if you ever need to pull it off. But with the MP40s, the only pieces of maintenance you're really doing on it, same with the feeder, is just taking the wet side out of the tank, and the feeder you can just unplug the cable from. So those cables probably don't have to move. Either way, really, really, really smart. I wouldn't have thought of that using the trim of the tank like that with those brackets to hide it. That was really, really smart. Just a wild collection of corals to start off. A lot of color. This tank is going to look absolutely amazing. I would say in the next 8 months, when you have that, solid explosion of growth and things are just taking off, the SPS kind of grow exponentially. They start off as frags and take forever, but once they start branching, those branches start branching and so on and so forth, like fractals. It's crazy. And you start getting all this growth, and then things are going to fill in really, really fast. And I want to see this tank again. In like 8 months to a year, this is going to look insane. Lots of good fish, too. I love the fish choices. I'm a big fan of blue chromis, blue-green chromis. I'm also a big fan of tangs. I love tangs. Yellow tang in there looks really good. I see what looks like, I can't tell if it's a yellow chorus wrasse or something else, but really, really nice collection of fish to go along with the tank. It looks like perhaps a chorus wrasse. Really well done. I also like the brick background. I love the way the light is spilling on it and adding like a background to the tank in that way. Really, really neat. Again, really, really impressed. Really, really impressed. I'll also say something. I have never used an aquarium controller to really run a reef tank. Never. The closest I ever got was like a heater controller for a heater to make sure that that was, taken care of. Seeing people with these like really kind of elaborate apex setups to like hone in on that SPS growth and that stability and keep it manageable and as hands-off as possible, it's really got me thinking. Reef Therapy, excellent work, really, really nice. I don't even really have any advice for you. I think you're on a great path. You obviously know what you're doing. You're doing a great job. I'm almost jealous because my tank is empty. There's nothing in it. Next up, we've got Ryan's Reef. See what Ryan's got going on here. Nice. Another SPS dominant system, it looks like, running, primarily Kessels, 3 Kessels. Very, very nice. They look like A360 tuna blue. Beautiful black clownfish. The rock work on this tank's actually really nice too. A lot of like arches. It looks like it's off the glass in all directions as well. Really, really good for flow. Got a tang gang going on in this tank, taking care of them algaes. Really nice collection of rock flower anemones. I'm a big fan of rock flowers. Super easy to take care of. Really, really nice. Vast array of colors. Nice little rockozoanthids. Some meteor shower cyphastria. Oh man, a little acan garden. A couple of acan gardens. Some alveopora it looks like. A nice leather coral in there for some movement. Maybe to keep the clownfish occupied. Cup coral. Some more of that cyphastria. Beautiful. Sunny D's. Nice. Really, really nice. Oh, I see your pump in the background there. So we got some circulation pumps in here. Not quite sure what they are. The SPS look like they're doing well. If you bought these as frags and they're already growing out, that looks like some Miyagi tort. Ha! I knew I'd remember it. But yeah, if you started most of these as frags, they look like they've got some good growth going on, starting to take off. Yeah, so the bird's nest is looking really nice. It's hard to tell. I know you've got probably the whites turned up a little bit for this video, which is awesome because it makes it a lot easier to see. I can see that you've got a lot of color in that bird of paradise bird's nest, Seriatopera, if you will. But it's hard for me to tell, but it also looks like you might actually have a little bit of paleness in some of those branches as well. And I don't know exactly what would be causing that in every situation, but in my personal experience, I found that a lot of birds' nests can work their way up to having quite a bit of light, but sometimes they actually appreciate less light than a lot of those crazy highlight SPS. So if you do find that it doesn't want to color up all the way, sometimes moving it out of the light is actually going to help, you know, just down a little bit in the tank, a little bit lower on the PAR spectrum will probably help out a little bit with coloring up. But again, it could just be the fact that the whites are turned up, because your other SPS are looking pretty good too. Like even this staghorn, the growth on it is just awesome. Another, look at the Digi. The orange Digi could not be any more orange. The Miyagi tort looks amazing. The blue tip stag looks incredible. Even that looks like a Pasillopora or a Stylophora. You have one of each probably. Really, really nice color. Looking really, really solid. Little collection of mushrooms down on the bottom. I like that you've separated for your tank here. The SPS are dominating the top portion of the tank while your, it looks like a pipe organ. Awesome. While your other corals are a little bit further down. So that's a really smart way to set up a mixed reef. That way you have that higher light area in the tank for your SPS up top, and then everything down below just a little bit further. Gets a little bit of shading from the SPS, especially as they grow in. Right now, they don't take up as much space, but I can see you've got them all lined up quite nicely. I love that you've got like branching, more bush style, a couple more branching, bush, branching. You're going to have this nice kind of growth pattern that's going to be tall corals that are wispy and outstretching with more dense corals and then tall corals. It's going to be a really nice aesthetic across the tank. Overall, just super, super appealing. You definitely look like you've got enough flow going on in the tank. I don't see this often, but I also like the fact that you've mixed rubble into your substrate. So your substrate isn't just a blanket of white, but you also have these small coralline covered pieces of rock all throughout the substrate, which serve, you know, different purposes. So one, you always have something to stick a frag on if you want to. It's already in the tank. You're not, you know, grabbing a bleach white frag plug and then gluing something to it. It adds a little bit more texture. I personally think it just makes it look a little bit more natural. When you're right up on a reef and you're diving and stuff, there are patches, big, beautiful patches of white sand, but there's also all kinds of stuff, especially up close to the rockwork, you know, mixed around in the rubble, and it adds just a little, you know, a little something extra while also helping to prevent any extra flow in the tank from blowing the substrate all over the place. It kind of helps anchor the rest of the substrate around it. So really, really cool. I also love that you're not using all the same pump. You have both a, what looks like maybe a Jabao pump. It could be a Current USA. It's hard for me to tell. And then a Nero. Like your Nero's right up front, and then you've got the other pump closer in the back, blowing behind the rockwork. Really, really smart. Your growth looks great. You're off to an amazing start with this reef. Obviously, it's been around a while because you got coralline everywhere, which means you're also going the slow and steady wins the race route, which again, is very, very smart, practical way to do it. I also love your gigantic urchin on the back. That's just like sticking his black spikes out everywhere. And there's something's got to be said for that Kessel shimmer. It is one of the nicest shimmers of all fixtures that I've seen. It is the closest thing to metal halide that I've ever come across, and it looks just striking. Really good work. Good job, Ryan. Solid. Next up, we've got Texas Reefer USA, who sent in a 178-gallon acrylic reef. Let's have a peek. Solid. So this tank's definitely been running for a while. It is packed. Tangang, Oh, orange skunk clownfish hosting an anemone. Orange skunk clowns are one of my favorites. Chocolate tang in there, it looks like, or a mimic tang. Hippo tang, really nice collection of tangs. Niger triggerfish, it looks like. Just a ton of coral stacked. Looks like some barred gobies in there too. Wow. Nice skimmer, nice sump. Got a whole whack load of probes. Maybe a BRS reactor I see in there. Really nice. So I'm assuming that means you're going to show us an apex or something. And there it is. Apex setup. Really, really nice. A lot of beautiful coral in this tank. Again, softy dominated tank. There's some SPS in there. I see some Montipora caps and stuff, some SPS sitting back on a frag rack. But lots of beautiful swaying softies, some LPS in there too. Great collection of bubble tip nems. And just stacked, just completely filled in. Mushrooms. Really, really nice work. You obviously know what you're doing. And I see a biopellet reactor on this tank. So this is a little bit more interesting because most of the tanks we've been looking at have implemented some form of a refugium as nutrient export, where this is using biopellets, which is a form of carbon dosing. So it's really cool to see how people accomplish basically similar goals with completely different methods of filtration. It's a great way to just show that there's more than one way to accomplish the same thing. It's also a really interesting way to bring up the point that not everybody's system is going to be the same, and the advice you would give one person may not work for everybody, and it's really important to tailor your advice to the aquarium of that person and that person's habits and what they want to accomplish, rather than just anecdotal stuff that's worked for you in the past. Because if I was trying to give advice to everybody whose aquarium I was just looking at, I would have slightly different advice for each person. I couldn't give somebody refugium advice if they are not running a refugium. You have to tailor that nutrient export advice to the correct channel. The only thing I wish you did was give me a shot pulled back so I could see like the length of the tank. Because I have a feeling that standing back and looking at this system must be jaw-dropping. Like, just to have coral stacked end to end and really no rock to be seen, it's going to be pretty impressive, especially with all those fish moving back and forth in the tank. You have a really impressive group of tangs, beautiful angel in there too. Really, really nice, really, really impressive. You could probably use some cable ties though. That's my only advice. Because looking under your cabinet, it's a little bit messy. But I mean, half the time the doors are closed, right? So as long as it's doing what it needs to do for the tank, c'est la vie. But cable ties, the Velcro ones, that way they're really easy to take off when you need to do some maintenance on a piece of equipment. That's my suggestion. Awesome tank, really inspiring, and it's one of the reasons I love doing reacts like these is because it gives me a chance to see what the community who follows us is capable of doing, and it's pretty obvious that you guys are doing really well. You're doing very, very well for yourselves. You've got a great grasp on what you need to do to accomplish your goals in reef keeping, and hopefully we've been a huge part of that for you in bringing that information. Before I joined the team here, I know I was watching a lot of BRStv videos to kind of bring myself up to speed and everything that's going on and learn some extra tips, tricks, and new methods I haven't tried before in reef keeping. And it really helped me out, and now it's just proof that it's obviously helping a lot of people out. It's super inspiring to see what, you know, anybody out there can accomplish. It takes a certain kind of person to keep a reef tank and put, you know, the effort into it and have it be a hobby that kind of consumes you, because it just does. But for all of us out there who, you know, might be starting up and are a little unsure or intimidated, that's proof in the pudding. These are just regular people like you and me who have fallen in love with the hobby and want to accomplish something really cool and exciting with it, and they're definitely capable of doing it. So you can too. If you want to send in your tank, again, I'll remind you on YouTube, just go ahead and upload a video and tag it #BRStv Reacts, and you can put that right in the title. That way we can search it up and find it, and then I can have a look at it. Thank you so much for watching. It's been a slice. With all that said, if you're newer to the hobby or even been in it for a while but want to brush up, the 5-minute series that Ryan's got going on right here, check that playlist out. There's tons of information that's going to help you get the most out of your saltwater hobby and setting up the tank the right way the first time so that your corals can thrive and you can smile. Like me, looking at all your tanks. Holy, good job.